correct me if I'm wrong. I think you had mentioned that you were the first student to ever physically clog a porta-john in the history of Raw.
We're all known for something.
I wanted to thank everybody for taking an opportunity to tune in today. We're going to do a little bit of a different format. We're going to do a little bit of a Q&A session with my good friend Jeremy Hogan about our experiences with level 1 ADV classes. We each took a level 1 class separately this year from 2 different providers. I attended West 38 Moto and Jeremy attended RawHyde Adventures. Is that correct, Jeremy?
That's correct.
We wanted to give everybody a little bit of a firsthand experience for what we felt were the pros and cons for each class and what some of the differences and similarities are. Let's start with a little bit of context. Jeremy, can you tell us a little bit about how long you've been riding, when you started, a little bit of your background? Have you ever attended any classes before? And what are your preferred riding disciplines?
Certainly, yeah. My riding started, I want to say I was about 12 or 13 years old. Went to a friend's cabin and he had a couple of these tiny little motorbikes with big, fat, wide tires. He was like, yeah, my dad said we can take these out if we want. I was like, yeah, let's do it. No idea what I was doing. I knew how to ride a bicycle, but that was about it. But yeah, from that point on, I was definitely hooked. It's been on and off over a lot of years. I've had 3 kids, so it kind of depended on where I was living at the time and how much attention the kids needed. But I decided as my boys got older just to take them to the MSF course so they could just go with me. So it's been pretty much all road riding all these years, all these decades that I've been doing it. Not to give away my age, but so yeah, I think like a lot of people, you pass these dirt trails, dirt paths, and you wonder, wow, I really would like to go up there, but I know that I'm not equipped either with the skill sets or the actual equipment. In both cases to do that.
I've been riding on and off since I was probably 10. We started up with a couple of little dirt bikes. I think we had a Honda 80 and a Yamaha 110. And then it was primarily street up until last year. Last year, I purchased a little KTM 390 Adventure, a very small adventure bike. I'm sure it's capable. I did not have the best time on that bike. The saddle's pretty high, and I was riding with someone who definitely had a more dirt-oriented bike and a more dirt-oriented background. Like Jeremy, I attended an adventure class during 2022, and we're here to sort of share our experiences. Jeremy, you attended RawHyde Adventures in California. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes. They got a couple locations now, but their primary base is in California, Southern California.
Okay. The class itself then, for the RawHyde Adventures class, how many days was the class and what was the price point?
So it's more expensive, but it does include everything, which I like. So the official class, you get there on Friday evening. And you have dinner, you meet everybody, all the kind of stuff. And then you set out Saturday all day, Sunday all day, and it wraps up Sunday evening. I added the intro. They have a training clinic because I'd never done any off-road riding or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I want to say the course itself was somewhere around the $1,600 range. And then to add the additional clinic, which was another half day on Friday, it was like another $400 or $500 somewhere in there. I did get a lot out of that. I'm actually really glad I did do that. So that was well worth it. So I got there at like noon on Friday, and we were riding and training all the way till about 5 o'clock on Sunday. They have lodging on site. They also have chefs on site, so the food and everything is taken care of. They have a bar there if you need a couple drinks after the day, which many people did just to wind down and relax. It was nice. You show up, you spend the whole time on their at their facility on the grounds, and which is nice, not to have to worry about booking hotels or finding food and bringing food with me, things like that. He owns the land. I don't remember how many acres around there, but of course they've been running this for a long time. So they have, hill climbs set up and mapped out, hill descents. They have a gravel pit, a sand area, just a lot of different terrain. That's just, they've, built it over the years specifically for training you on different things. They could start you off at a real basic level and then work you up from there.
How many of the students that attended the 2 days of training also opted to add on the kind of that that primer?
I would say it was probably close to half.
I attended a class back in May provided by West 38 Moto. And West 38 Moto does classes around the country, a little bit based upon calendar and then weather. So the Arizona class took place in May. And similar to the RawHyde class, it was basically 2 days. You would arrive Friday. Training was Saturday and Sunday. We had a level 1 class. There were 2 groups, a level 1 group and a level 2 group. Each had their own dedicated instructor and a third instructor that would float between each class. And I think class size for us was around 7 to 8 riders. Our class took place on private land, but not purpose-built motorcycling property. It was more like dry, kind of dusty ground, for the most part flat, with a couple of smaller, shorter hill climbs for us to practice on. That would be one difference, I think, between RawHyde Adventures and West 38 Moto. Dusty is working with different locations around the country to best facilitate training in locations, but they're not purpose built for motorcycling. And then one of the additional contrasts would be price point. So West 38 Moto, the amount that you're paying for the class is about $800. Breakfast was included. We did have material to make lunch, sandwiches, and there were some fully stocked coolers of water and Gatorade. We did not have a bar scenario. Let's talk about class size. I think for West 38 Moto, in our level 1 class, we had 8 riders with, I'll say 1.5 instructors, I guess. How was the student to teacher or instructor ratio at RawHyde?
I want to say our sizes were about 8 to 10 as well. And then we would have 2 dedicated instructors, and then like a third that would often help and be around there. So they had a lot of instructors. They also had multiple classes running at once. So I was in the intro class. And so the first day I did the pre-training clinic, which had 2 instructors. And then the next Saturday and Sunday, we had 2 different instructors, same instructors on Saturday and Sunday, but different than the first day. They were all, really capable. Really did a good job of coaching us each individually, which I appreciated a lot. Not missing out on that individual coaching, so the class sizes were not too big. But they were also running 2 different intro classes, I think an intro plus class, and then definitely they have a next step, which is beyond. And so they had very experienced trainers running those classes, which was nice because you got to meet everybody, all the different riders each evening for dinner, and of course over breakfast and lunch as well. All that was together. But then everybody headed off to their respective classes to different parts of the terrain, whatever they were learning how to do that day.
Sounds like you had somewhere between 32 and 40 riders between maybe 4 classes. Mm-hmm. But as far as the terrain goes, with enough space, you don't run into overcrowding. Was there a lot of kind of argy-bargy around features, or was it really spread out?
It was really spread out. Yeah, they did a good job of timing. They had a pretty well down, like clockwork. They obviously watching the time. They okay, we've got to leave this part in 20 minutes because the next course is coming in here. So they had it very scheduled as to who was in which parts of the course. You wouldn't run into each other, literally or figuratively. But we also had a chance where we showed up a little early because they gave some free rides. So we were kind of exploring the terrain, and we ended up a little early at our station. We got to watch the more advanced group do some of their exercises, which was actually a lot of fun. They did some crazy stuff, something called the wall, which I showed you footage of that. I couldn't even believe it with my own eyes that a bike can get up that thing.
So what we found with our, with our setting, we had 2 separate groups, level 1, level 2, or beginner and advanced. We didn't have a lot of overcrowding at all. We had a lot of cone work, slalom work. And I felt that the instructors that we had at West 38 were also really, they were good at teaching. They were good at riding. It was a good blend. Everybody was very supportive. I'm amazed at how well Dusty from West 38 remembered everybody's name really quickly. All the instructors are really, were really nice folks with a fair amount of experience between themselves. He's got a pretty mobile facility, so he pops out a kitchen We'll make some breakfast. I think I mentioned we had some sandwich fixings for lunch. Restroom facilities were pretty rugged. We had a couple of porta-johns. There was camping on site, or you could choose to book a hotel in town, which I ended up doing. And thankfully, it was pretty hot those days. So it was nice to have air conditioning, which was a plus.
Yeah, with RawHyde as well, there was the amenities were very nice, but it's a very remote location. So it was also porta johns, but he was very strict. They were cleaned every single day. It was just the upkeep there was really fantastic. So
Nice.
yeah, so it never felt. It didn't take your mind off of the training, I guess.
Right. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think you had mentioned that you were the first student to ever physically clog a porta john in the history of Raw.
We're all known for something.
I would argue that our training was probably similar, but the overall setting, the overall amenities, those are probably the things that are going to be the biggest differentiators between classes. How was RawHyde's progression? Did you feel like it was pretty linear?
I was happy with the way it progressed. It was a lot of turns as well. I think that is actually one of the really harder parts. Very low speed work at the very beginning. Cone work. They would. I guess what they liked is they really started it with the basics as far as moving your weight around the bike. So first thing we did was there was an abandoned state highway near there, and we went down the highway and practiced shifting our weight on the bike to swing your leg over entirely to the other side from one to the other. They really spent a lot of time at the very beginning letting you get comfortable with how balanced your bike is on its own, which I really appreciated, because then the rest of the weekend you end up just really trusting that the bike wants to stay upright. So even when you're headed down a sandy grade, you can hear me in my video footage saying out loud in my helmet, the bike wants to stay upright. The bike wants to stay upright. Don't grab your front brake. Those kind of things.
Sure.
And they really did help you through that. They spent so much time, not an exorbitant amount of time, but just look, the bikes are well balanced. They want to stay upright beneath you. And I really appreciated that. A lot of low speed turns, which went into figure eights, which went into cones courses. And then we started going, the graduation was fantastic, because then we started doing twisties uphill and then downhill, obviously all in dirt, practice steep hill climbs and steep hill descents. They even got us some time in the sand, which ended up coming very handy when I found myself in Borrego Springs last weekend. The other thing that I really liked is that they offer immediate adventure trips right after. So a number of people stayed on through Sunday, and they added another one. They've got a facility where you can ride out to it, and it's another 3-day trip. You can take everything you've learned and immediately get on the boat with all of them. They take care of the food, and they've got your lodging, everything taken care of, so you can just ride and put everything you practice to work.
And riding a motorcycle definitely is a perishable skill. So being able to apply a new set of techniques at adventure riding while out under the watchful eye of instructors, but in a true off-road environment, sounds like a great way to start to cement what you learned. West 38 also, and this is a similarity. So West 38, right directly after our class, there was a group that went on the Arizona BDR. It's interesting, as you mentioned, that seems like a really good opportunity to get out and continue your learning with an instructor. We did not have the space or the layout to do or practice turns on or off camber, up or downhill. We basically did some clutch work going uphill, and then we practiced descending down a light grade. I don't know if that's something that West 38 saves to level 2, or if that is more driven by the geography for each given location.
And I would say too, one piece of advice that stuck with me that I quickly ignored was they said, look, we're going to train you how to ride on sand, but if you can avoid it, what we do is we ride around sand because it's rough. And so I believe I did the same thing that you did, which was shortly after adventure courses. I'm like, I want a trail to find. This will ring a bell shortly. I found a trail. The warning sign said warning, soft sand. I was like, well, I'm an ADV rider now. So it did not take long. I did not make it far down that trail before I realized my grave error. And I'm pretty sure you did pretty much the same thing after your course as well.
You're right. Well, no. I think I was in Joshua Tree, and I asked one of the park employees, "Oh no, you don't want to go down that trail. It's rough and it's very sandy. Hold on, I've just attended a level 1 class. I think I've got this. Out of my class, the lesson that I enjoyed the most, or the skill, was skid turns. That was that made me feel like a moto badass. And then I would skid turn, and then I would do a 180 to get back to kind of our staging area of the line. And I would then just crack the throttle enough to where you could just the slightest power slide to feel like a real boss. How about you, skill wise? What was your favorite skill to learn?
Well, what's interesting is we actually didn't get to skid turns. So that's a different level there. So they have that separate part or anything like that. Hill descents was actually really interesting because they had us do it 3 different times, 3 different ways. And so the first time we could feather the clutch and feather the front brake. And then the second time we had to let the clutch out fully and not touch the brake, which actually ended up coming in really handy later on. And then the third time we had to hold in the clutch, not touch the brake, and just let the speed of the bike take us down the hill and slow down at the end.
For 2023, any big rides planned? Are you going to attend another level 2 class? Are you going to do any big rides? Anything planned for next season?
I'd like to do both. I'd like to get back to RawHyde. I mean, if West Moto came out here as well, I definitely would consider that. It sounds like it was a great experience. I would just watching, like I mentioned, watching some of the things that the upperclassmen were able to do really inspired me to want to get back out there and do that. But I also want to do a ride. I'd love to do a BDR, a portion of a BDR. Maybe the Utah one I heard is fantastic. I'm in Southern California, so there is a BDR down here. The instructors, even at RawHyde, were like, look, the first 100 miles or so are a lot of sand. You're going to want to not start there. So I've had my experience with sand. I can do it, but I also hear them ringing in my head that if you can avoid it, avoid it. It's rough.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching today. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. Really helps the channel out quite a bit. Hope you enjoyed our comparison between RawHyde Adventures and West 38 Moto's Level 1 Adventure Training class. I'm going to leave you with a clip of Jeremy wiping out, because that's what friends do.
It was perfect, just need a little more momentum.
Okay, thank you. It felt better, even though at least I'm jumping clear of the bike. That's all I can hope for. All right, 1, 2, 3. Thank you, Jim.